Thank you so much for joining us tonight for session 1 of 4 of Why Good Kids Get Bad Grades. For those of you who don't know me, I am Laura, the administrative assistant here at Everyone Reading. And at this time, I would like to introduce tonight's speaker, Dr. Linda Silbert. A little bit of background on Dr. Silbert. She's devoted over 50 years to supporting students of all ages and abilities in achieving academic success. She specializing in with individuals who face challenges in schools, such as those with ADD, ADHD, anxiety, learning disabilities such as dyslexia, dyscalculia, and dysgraphia. She, along with her husband, Dr. Al Silbert, they co-authored the award-winning book Why Bad Grades Happen to Good Kids, and the updated version, which is what we're going to be covering tonight, Why Good Kids Get Bad Grades. They also run a tutoring and test prep company for more than 40 years. They've also developed an extensive range of learning and study aids that you can find at Strong Learning. And one of those resources does include their popular Super Deck card games. So on that note, Dr. Linda Silbert, thank you so much for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. And I welcome all of you. I thank you all so much for joining us during the summer on vacations. And we decided to do this summer. And we may do this again in the fall. We're not sure. But we figured let's try it during the summer so parents and teachers can start getting ready for that next year. And I know so many parents, they begin the year off with a hope and a prayer that it's going to be just fine. We will not go through what we did last year. And then by October, November, all of a sudden they start realizing, oh my God, we're back where we started. So we decided, you know what? Let's do it over the summer. It's for those parents who say, no, let's get ahead of it. Let's start off on the right foot and let's see what's happening. After 40, 50 years, my husband and I wrote this book, Why Good Kids Get Bad Grades. In 2007, we wrote the book, Why Bad Grades Happen to Good Kids. And that won many, many awards and sold we sold a lot of books. And actually, a publisher came to me about 6 months ago and said, can you take that book and update it after the pandemic and after social media and what has happened now? And I said, oh my God, well, we did it. And so, so we ended up coming out now, and we switched the title to a more positive title, Why Good Kids Get Bad Grades. And I have to tell you, we have this tutoring center all these years, and every time any family came in with the children and the parents, and I would always give them a copy of the book, Why Bad Grades Happen to Good Kids. And the kids, even if they were 10, if they were 12, 16, they go, I am a good kid. And the parents would always sit and go, I never said you weren't. Yes, you do. You always say I'm lazy. You always say I'll be flipping hamburgers someplace if I don't do something. And the parents go, yeah, but we want you to work. We want you. No, you don't think I'm good. It's really an interesting thing. And after being in this business for so long, my husband's doctorate's actually in teaching physics and math, and mine is actually in educational counseling. I began as a third grade teacher in 1960s. That's where we began. And so here we are. We came out with this book, and that's what tonight is all about. And this whole series, I'm going to be talking about the chapters in this book. So I'm going to begin. The 4-week course is designed for parents to help them understand why good kids may struggle in school. And most parents will say, well, they don't study. Oh, no, they procrastinate. And we really don't know. And unless you can't fix a car or change the tire if you don't check out really what is wrong. And with the kids, there are so many reasons, so many. And that's why we decided to update our book. And we're now it's double the size. And we will go through you first designed to help you understand why your kids may struggle, and two, to equip you with the practical tools that will support you and your children for academic success and beyond. Because if you learn these skills, it's going to continue right with you. So, let's get right to it. To understand why good kids may struggle in school, you must begin by finding out the cause. And interestingly enough, the second thing is make sure your child knows you're their ally. And the parents go like, what are you talking about? Not their adversaries. Be sure they know it. And the parents always go, oh no, they know I'm, and the kids usually say, no, no, you keep yelling at me. You keep grounding me. It's a perception. And so we're going to go into this. I did my actual doctoral dissertation on the antecedents of self-esteem in children. How do they create that feeling of self-worth, of self-esteem? And I'm going to get into that during this session. And it's all a perception. So let's begin. Let's go back to step one. Begin by finding the cause. Cause one, it's physical issues. Okay. They could be an auditory issue. How many of you, I don't know if you're teachers or your parents, all of a sudden you realize this child isn't hearing. I had a child that was classified with all different things in a wonderful public school. I'm north of the city in a suburb. And they had her classified with she had a hearing loss. And I realized one day she was turned around because I always had a tape of all these little toys and stuff for them to pick their little prizes. And I was talking to her and she never moved. She was busy. And I said to the parent when they came in, I said, how do you know she's hearing? You've got to get to an audiologist. And the pediatricians do a test all the time. But unless you get to an audiologist, you're not going to get the details. They may be missing the beginning of words, the ending of words. There can be auditory loss, and there's also auditory processing disorder, where they hear everything, but then when they hear it, they can't process what they heard. It's like they see all the trees in the forest, but they don't get the whole forest. They get certain things. These kids, they're the ones at the party, and the joke is given, and 5 minutes later they go, oh, that's what you were saying. And then they're the ones that laugh all of a sudden. Auditory processing disorder is critical because what is the teacher doing all day? Blah, 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 blah. So one of the most important things I tell almost every parent, I don't care if their hearing is perfect, please get to an audiologist and make sure that they're hearing all the sounds. I have to say one other story. I'm going to be telling stories as we go along. I had a boy years ago in 10th grade. He was a perfect student. And all of a sudden in 10th grade, he was failing this or getting C's in this. And the mother and father were going crazy. Like, where'd our great kid go? This good kid who always got these good grades. I sent the mother to an audiologist. And he was missing certain sounds. And I picked it up testing him at one point, and I said told me to repeat words. And I said the word moon, MOON, and he kept saying noon. And I said to the mother later, and she was sitting there, and she looked at him, she said, moon. He said, I'm saying it, noon. Now he got through school and even through middle school. He was a bright kid. Got to high school. He's now taking geometry and he's taking, I think it was physics or bio or whatever, all new words. He couldn't get the words. He was missing. So begin physical issues. And though I have to tell you, I spoke to the director of pupil personnel about him, And he said to me, he's just not doing his work. This is what the head of the school said to me in pupil personnel. He said, he's not doing his work. He's a typical teenager. I said, he's not hearing. And the mother called me on the way home from the audiologist that day, and she said, oh my God. She said, I missed it that day when I was sitting next to you, and all of a sudden he's saying noon. So be aware of this. The other physical issue is visual. Make sure they go and you see a pediatric ophthalmologist and make sure there's nothing wrong. That because some kids need certain glasses for certain things, make sure you get to a pediatric ophthalmologist. An optometrist is fine, but don't start doing, if they're struggling in reading, all the reading and the tracking and the following has nothing to do. If you talk to the pediatric ophthalmologist, those exercises have nothing to do if a child is having trouble reading. If there's a weak muscle, it may be fine. I'm not an ophthalmologist. I'm not an eye doctor, but all the research, and I work very closely with Renee Richards, the director of Manhattan Eye and Ear. I'm up here in Westchester, and she was sending everybody up to me. And I remember people from Manhattan going, "Where am I?" Because she would tell them, "Come up here." She was going crazy over this because they were going for this eye training, and she kept saying, "If there's a weak muscle, fine. This is not going to help them read." So, I mean, we will get into all this eventually over these 4 weeks. I'm going to get into a whole thing about dyslexia because I work with a lot of dyslexic children. But make sure two causes right at the beginning: physical issues, the sensory, auditory, visual, lifestyle. They may not be doing well in school because they're hungry. Or the eating habits. I had a boy walk in one night, pretty affluent family. This is not that they were suffering from poverty, but it was high school. He then, after school, he went to football practice. Then he took a job because he wanted a car and he had to pay for the insurance and blah, blah, blah. And his eating habits, he walked in, he was sitting here eating a candy bar for dinner. The eating habits. Then go to sleep deprivation. Oh my God, sleep deprivation is affecting a lot of kids while they're struggling in school, especially those high school kids. We had one boy, he was failing math, and he was in his first period class. He was basically falling asleep. We took him, same teacher, put him at the end of the day. He went from failing to an A student because we knew we always did well in math, and he couldn't function. He was too tired. Okay, so that's the lifestyle. Learning disabilities. It could be dyslexia. It could be dysgraphia, a problem with writing, dyscalculia, the math, language issues, receptive and expressive language, ADHD. The ADHD kids is those executive functions. They don't have the book. If they have the paper, they have the assignment, but they can't find the laptop. I remember one boy walking in one day and saying, "Okay, I lost the whole backpack. I don't even know where that is now." I mean, all these things, they can cause bad grades. But they have nothing to do with intellectually how the child's doing. So the cause two is social issues. And the first one is peer pressure, especially once you get to middle school. Once you get to middle school and high school, the peer pressure is huge. And I remember sitting with one little boy who was in 8th grade, adorable, redhead little boy. He had on a black leather jacket, and he's sitting here. And I said to him, "You know what you can do to really do well in school? Always preview. Go ahead, figure out what's going to happen the next day. Only stay a day ahead. Ask your teacher. And if you stay ahead, you'll know the vocabulary. It'll all be in your brain. And everyone's going to go, 'You're so smart.'" And he said to me, "Can't do that." I said, "Why not?" And he said, "I'm going to ruin my whole reputation." I said, "Your reputation? So he goes, yeah, I'm going to ruin my whole reputation. Can't do it. The peer pressure. They may not be doing well. Some people are afraid to do too well because everyone's going to think I'm too smart. You don't, or peer pressure is what you got the homework, and we nope, none of us did it. I mean, you don't know what's happening, but that's definitely an issue to look into. Bullying, huge. Bullying is our our son actually wrote a whole book. It's called Burticus: How I Survived School, Bullies, and Farley Finnegan, who's the class goody two shoes, all about how you survive the bullying, how he survived it, and his analysis of why these kids are doing this bullying. Um, and that's a book on it. And this is fifth, sixth grade. Parental disinterest in education. Now, all of you that are here obviously are quite interested, and, and I appreciate it so. But when there's parental disinterest, now I have to say, I once had a mother who all her kids were really struggling, and she joined the Board of Ed, but she wasn't home. She was working, then running to meetings. And that's a form of parental disinterest. Yes, she was on the Board of Ed, but you've got to take care of your own kids. And the parents have to be part of it. And we have a whole chapter in it about not becoming the overbearing parent, where your child almost becomes paralyzed because you're part of it too much. But I can't spend too much time on any of the chapters because we don't have enough time here. But parental disinterest in education. And then we have poverty, which you're trying to figure out how to get food on the table. It's hard to be interested in school, and the child is hungry, or the child is more concerned with that they're going to have a roof over their head. That's a biggie for social issues. Now, cause three, educational issues. Okay. Difficulty in reading, writing, or math in elementary school or at all levels. And it doesn't mean the child actually has dyslexia. It means the child just has difficulty in these particular subjects. And that's okay. We all have difficulty in something. If I ever had to play football to get through school, I'd still be in elementary school. If I had to play baseball, I can't hit that ball with that bat. It doesn't. But in school, you do have to get through the reading and writing. They may just have a problem. And you then try to figure out how you're going to work with that. Difficulty in a particular subject. I think the biggest subject we have here is geometry. People go through school and they think they're fine. They hit algebra or geometry. All of a sudden, they're frozen. And when you get into a situation like that, you literally freeze. I guess many of you, if you've studied the neural, the brain, those dendrites shrink, and you get anxious. They shrink, and you know yourself when this happens. You go, wait a minute, I can't even think. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. Why are you asking me a question now? I can't think straight. And the more you relax, they'll connect, and all of a sudden you'll be okay. But when there's a problem in a particular subject, you freeze and you become, I hate that subject. Most of the kids will say to me, oh, that teacher hates me. That teacher just hates me. And I've always said to them, they told you that? They actually told you they hate you? How do you know? No, they didn't tell me. I just know. I just know. But that's how they'll put that little wall around themselves to protect their own ego. But that could be simply an educational issue. It could be one subject. The executive function, also under educational, that's the poor study skills, poor organizational skills. Study skills, by the way, I should go back to that. Most parents say they just didn't study. I had one father years ago who would make his daughter sit at that dining room table every night for 2 hours so that she would study. I said, but she doesn't know how. Most kids have no clue. Most kids go like this. They pick up the book and they'll read it, they'll cover it up, and they'll think, oh yeah, they'll say it to themselves. Okay, the next thing. Most adults do that. Most people do not know how to study. Okay, and so I've written so many books on how to study, and there's so much out there, but you have to make sure it's how your child learns. If your child's an auditory learner or uses language, or has to speak, or has to write, know how your child learns. Okay, but study skills is big. Poor organizational skills. As I said, the child who comes home with the book, but now they forgot the assignment, they have their laptop, but they lost the book, they'll lose the whole book bag. Poor time management skills. Now, these are all the causes. These classes I'm giving tonight and the next three are going to go into answering what do you do about poor time management? What do you do about study skills? What do you do about organizational skills? Okay, the other educational issue, it could be the teacher-child mismatch. It could be a teacher that teaches only auditorily and the child's a visual learner. It could be any type of mismatch. Lack of practice. It's huge, huge. And if you study how to practice, there's even a way to go from getting the C when you practice to getting the B to getting the A. Is an actual system in how to practice. We're going to get into that during another class. And another cause, they may never have learned it. That's where the pandemic comes in. Some of these kids who were in preschool, kindergarten, first grade, they just never picked up that base. They were on Zoom. They were too little to be on Zoom. Then when they finally went back to school, they had masks. And those foundational skills in reading and math, they actually didn't learn. And we're seeing one after the other in our tutoring service because they're now in fifth grade, they're in sixth grade. They can't write, and they're only using their Chromebooks. Some of the schools are getting rid of the Chromebooks. Some of the schools are bringing back cursive because they have never learned it. There was an actual study done. I don't think I have this in the book, but there was a study done in a college, and they took one group of students and they had them take notes on their laptop. Another group took notes with printing, and another group took notes using cursive. The group using the cursive ended up learning the material better than the other two, and they held it longer. And the second one that came in was the printing, and the ones typing on their laptops were the weakest students. So it's interesting. And these kids now, what we addressed in this book and in this course now, are these students who lived through the pandemic. They're living with social media. They're living with Chromebooks. And many of them just simply aren't learning some of the material. Especially, I'm here 50 years, the difference in vocabulary. Huge, huge difference. Okay, next. Cause 4 is psychological or emotional issues. Okay, that's why some kids get bad grades. It may be organic. They're born with a psychological or an emotional, some sort of issue, and they're born with this genetically. Or it may arise, a psychological or emotional issue, as a result of unaddressed problems that came from the physical or came from the social or the educational. So let's just review again. The 4 causes. I said, number 1, find the cause. What is the cause of the child's poor grades? It can be cause 1 is physical, 2 is social, 3 is educational, and 4 is psychological and emotional. So we're going to begin with cause 4. I'm starting at the very end. Psychological and emotional. Why? Because they pertain to everyone. They pertain to your child, to you, to me, to every single person. And yet they are often overlooked until there's actually a problem in school or in life. And then all of a sudden, people are running to therapists and psychologists. One way of trying to prevent the psychological problems is the role of self-esteem in getting good grades. The fact is, and I have to say, I did my whole, as I said, doctoral dissertation on the antecedents, what causes self-esteem in children. And it's an amazing, amazing. I remember saying to the professor, oh my God, this research, when do I stop? He said, when you keep getting the same research over and over, and this one's quoting that one, and that one's quoting that one, and you keep getting the same thing. What I found, it was, I mean, for everyone to learn, which is amazing. People with positive self-esteem, which is the foundation to psychological and emotional strength, have the strength and the skills to overcome the physical, social, and educational issues. They will have the strength. So that's why I'm beginning with the psychological and emotional, and I'm beginning with helping your child get a feeling of high self-esteem. What is the role of self-esteem in this? High self-esteem is the key to raising an emotionally and socially healthy child. We cannot overestimate its importance. It is indispensable to human growth and development in school and out of school. So, what we're going to talk about this class is that how do you promote the self-esteem in your child? And then we're going to go into the physical, and what do we do with disabilities, and what do we do with study skills. That'll be the next three classes. Tonight we're going to talk about how do you promote a sense of positive self-esteem. But we're talking about positive versus inflated. There are many people walking around and children with very high self-esteem, supposedly, and then they fall apart. I can't do this. The teacher hates me. They're having breakdowns all the time because they're having inflated self-esteem. What is inflated? My husband, I made up that word. It's inflated, but it is kind of inflated. Okay. The story of the mouse and the psychiatrist says it all. The mouse goes to the psychiatrist because the mouse is afraid of a cat, terrified the cat's going to come around a corner and gobble up the mouse. And so the psychiatrist says, you're strong, you're brave, you're smart, you can do it. Don't be afraid. Just push through, and you're going to be fine. And the mouse leaves feeling like God, walks out of the building. A cat comes around the corner, and there goes the mouse. The moral of the story: what did the mouse have to learn? The skills to get away from the cat. That's the most important thing. When you're working with your child and you're building up a feeling of self-worth, that child has to have the skills. And if they fail, if something is wrong, if there's another issue at play, that feeling of self-worth, well, I'm okay. And they will learn the skills. And that's what we're going to be working on with you. Okay, parents, and this was amazing to me, no matter what research I did, parents contribute to self-esteem. And I'm going to read this and have it here with you. You need to know how important you are in promoting your child's self-esteem and school success. One, even though the teachers are the primary people helping students learn how to read and write, you, mom and dad, are more important. What you say and do affects how your children feel about themselves. Self-esteem is a perception, and that I'm going to go into in a minute. When children perceive their parents respect them, they'll have greater chance to succeed in school and beyond. So what does all this mean? A perception. Okay, now picture yourselves going into a room where you feel everyone in that room thinks you're the greatest person ever. Okay, and you walk in that room, you feel like God. Your self-esteem is high. You feel wonderful because your perception is those people perceive you as great. Picture going into a room where your perception is that those people feel they're all wearing black shoes and you're wearing brown. You just want to crawl into a hole in the floor. You don't, your self esteem, you say, well, what happened to your self esteem? It just plummeted. It's a perception. Well, the children perceive their significant others. It's how they perceive their significant others perceive them. Number one in a child's life, it's mom and dad. Then it goes to grandparents, siblings. Then it goes to teachers. And when the kids come in and they say, the teacher hates me anyway. And I go, and I'll call the teacher and they go, some of them say, I don't even know that child. They never open their mouth. Or they'll say, they think I hate them. I mean, what did I ever say? There's a perception, and it's how they perceive you perceive them. Four critical contributing factors of self-esteem are having a safe environment, number one. If some of you know about Maslow's stages of development, you begin with safety on the bottom, okay? And these are only four, there are more in the book, but I selected four to go over tonight that we could do in an hour and a half. Having a safe environment, being respected by mom and dad, and which turns into respecting them. It goes back and forth. Knowing their parents value and believe in them, knowing they're accepted and supported by their parents and the caregivers, being part of a family, part of a school, part of a community. That belonging gives you your roots, and that starts making you feel that you're somebody special. So we're going to begin here with the safety. What do I mean by safe environment? It's almost it's obvious. Before a child can develop a self-esteem and focus on schoolwork, they need to have their basic physical and emotional safety needs met at home and at school. A safe building to live in, sanitary bathrooms, good food. If they hurt and they fall and they scrape themselves, there will be someone there to hug them. Okay, now when they come home from school and they didn't do well on a test and they're failing or they're struggling in school in some subject for whatever reason, remember you have to find the cause. They have to feel safe to go to mom and daddy. If they know they're going to tell mom and dad what just happened and that they feel it, and mom and dad are going to say, now that's it. And when parents react only to the grade, and now you're punished. That's it. You're not going out. I'm taking away the phone. You're on the phone too much. You're not finding out what is wrong. And maybe it is that they're on the phone too much. Maybe they're not practicing enough. But if you remember the second thing I said at the very beginning, make sure, number two, they know you're their ally. If they know they're going home to the enemy, to the adversary, I'm going to get into a little later, they're going to start to lie. And you're not going to be able to get to what is actually happening in school. Okay. And then second thing, feeling safe. Children cannot live in fear of what I just talked about. Judgment from their peers, from their siblings. I have one girl that comes to me. She said, after every test, every girl in her class, this was 8th grade, they all compared their grades. And she said, she didn't want to go to school because she said, I'm just so nervous. It's suppose I don't get a good grade and they're all going to start talking about me, talk about social issues, peer pressure. These things all creep in to why good kids get bad grades. Okay, by caring for your children's needs, you're telling them that they're worthy. Through your words and actions, you convey to your child that you're their ally and you're working with them towards the same goals. Okay, children need to feel physically and emotionally safe at home. They need to know that their parents will be in their lives. I had a little girl. She would do well in school, and then all of a sudden, she would do nothing for a whole week in school. And everybody was going crazy. I met the mom. She walked in, and the dad was a pilot, and the mom, she she worked in the airlines. So all of a sudden they'd call her and she had to leave. And then she was flying there, she was flying there. And I said to this little girl one day, what does your mommy do? She said, I don't know. She's daddy's usually home, and then she's up in the plains somewhere, and I don't know where she is. This girl would just shut down the minute that mother left. If the dad left, it wasn't good, but it wasn't as bad as when the mother left. And then we started this was before phones. I mean, they couldn't call. So we started keeping a log, a whole thing, where mommy is today, where she is, when will mommy call her from where she is, just getting up and leaving and say, well, that's my job. That's what I do. And I said to the mom, I said, this is your child. She is so dependent on you. The minute you leave, she can't do work in school. She would just shut down. And I had one little boy, his mom was getting her PhD, I think in music somewhere. And she was going to school and she had to go away for the summer to do a residency. And it was a fabulous program she was in. And I remember saying to her, he can't function. And she said, well, what am I to do? I've got to get this degree. It's hard. I'm not telling you it's easy. It's very hard. But these are reasons kids suddenly don't do well in school. And you have to really sit back and say, are we doing something here? They need to know they're safe with someone or someplace. And if they're not, they can turn to you, mom and dad. Very, very important people in those lives to form feeling of self-worth. Okay, some ideas to help your child feel safe. Use routines. Kids love routines. Keep the day schedule relatively consistent, that almost every day is the same. It's not that they get in the car and they never know where they're going or whose house they're going to. Let your child know about travel plans in advance. As I just talked to you about that, the pilot. Inform your child about visitors if someone's coming to visit, and changes in your family. I mean, divorce is big. Divorce really comes into a home, but if you work with the child and most likely with a therapist, the separation, it's huge to a child. So just so you know that you're telling the child they're part of your family and they know what's happening. Okay, two, the second critical contributing factor after safety is being respected, and in turn respecting them. For them to respect you as their parents, and then for you to respect them. I always tell this story. The king was walking down the street with his two sons, and it started to rain. So the king put up the two umbrellas over the sons' heads, and they went walking down the street. And people came up to the king and said, shouldn't your sons be putting the umbrellas over your head? You're the king. And he said, well, how will they learn respect? If I don't respect them, how will they learn to respect me? And I love this. It's an old tale. I love that story because it just says it. It says it all. So how do you show your child genuine respect? Number one, do not berate them. A parent helping a child study for a test might make berating remarks like, you just did that. What are you, stupid? You're just not paying attention. Now pay attention. Now, once that child is there for more than 7 minutes, more than 3 minutes, so many kids don't tell their parents there's homework or there's a test because they're so afraid they're going to have to sit there. Okay, because they're terrified how long they'll have to sit. These are children. You have to remember we're dealing with children. Okay, a child's forgetfulness. A child can be so forgetful. Yet when an adult forgets something, well, okay, you forgot this, you forgot that. When the child forgets it, parents go crazy. Remember, most people forget things. And be sure your child is being respected. I wrote this here, there's no way I'm going to be humiliated again. This was a boy that came to me 3 times a week. The school actually sent him to me all through high school. very bright boy, severe dyslexia and dysgraphia. And he walked in one day and he was, I mean, just the poor thing broke down in tears. And I was just like, oh my God, what is wrong? And he said, I'm always so afraid to ever hand anything in. And he said, I wrote a paragraph today in school. I was so excited. And I handed it in, and I felt like I was with everyone. He felt part of the group. He felt that he wasn't on the outside looking in. He felt good. He handed it in, and the teacher said, oh my God, you're not going to hand that in. Goes, take this. And she put a big X on it, and she'd sit down and redo that. He had severe dysgraphia and dyslexia. Bright guy. Oh my God, what a wonderful person. He was an Eagle Scout. And he said to me, I will never hand another thing in. Now, he was a senior by then. And he said, it happened in February. He first told me about it in May because they weren't going to let him graduate because he didn't finish the course. He said, I haven't done anything in that class. I put my chair up against the wall because I was sitting against the wall. I faced forward. I would never, ever do that and expose myself again and be humiliated like that again. I can't even tell you what I ended up at the school. I almost went flipped out. And here the school was paying for him to be with me 3 times a week. They got pretty upset. Teacher was a good teacher. She just never really learned who he was. She never looked into it. So the respect you're going to show at home, make sure that this is your child, make sure in school that they're going to give him the same respect and that the teachers understand who your child is, because they're not going to know. They have so many kids, and it's very hard. Who's ever been a teacher knows how hard it is. Okay, the next one is knowing they are accepted and supported by their parents. We feel we're telling them, but remember, it's a perception. And we don't know. But things that you can do matter. Thank you. That's a great idea. Instead of saying, well, that's a stupid idea. We're not going to use that. Just be aware of what you're saying. Saying to them when the kid misses the ball and you say, no, you didn't do. Hey, no, you got to stand. It was a good try. That was a really good try. But you know what always helped me? Always use I. Use I. When I used to fumble the ball or something, here's what I used to do. Okay, I'm proud to be your mom. I'm so proud to be your dad. Okay, I always knew you could do it. And I always say that to the kids. I go, wow, look what you did. How did you do that? And they always sit and stare at me and they go, I don't know. They don't know that. But they just feel so good that somebody's their ally. Somebody's on their side. It's hard for them when they're not getting good grades. They want that gold star more than anybody. They want that A plus. And when they don't get it, they build this little shell around themselves. A friend of mine's a teacher, and she always says, well, no, it's a wall. They set up a wall, whatever you want to call it. What they're doing is they're protecting their own ego. And they know in school they struggle. And that's a horrible place to be for 12 years. That's tough. And you need as much support as possible. I'm going down my bullets here. That's great. How did you do that? That's what I always ask them. They go, I don't know. I believe in you. You always come through. And they'll always say to me, thank you. I say to them, you remember that time, that test, blah, 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 from, it could be 2 years ago, 3 years. What did you do? How did you do that? And they go, I don't know. I say, well, let's look back. Let's see what happened. And just saying to them, I love you. As their teacher, that's hard to do. But this is a course now for parents. Let them know. And they'll know if they feel it's that inflated self-esteem. Oh, you're so great at baseball. You're so great. I mean, you're failing all these courses, but you're going to do well in art. Don't just throw them aside. That doesn't help. It doesn't help that, yes, it's good, but they have to know, you know what? We're all not good at everything. None of us are good at everything. But this is where your strength is. This is what I used to do to make up for this. Work with them, be their ally. Okay, I want you to sit back and think. Did you think your parents accepted you for who you were? Think about it. All this happens. Self-esteem doesn't start to develop until about 6 and 7. It's interesting when they look at when people, I've seen this on television, the advertising toys for preschoolers. This is good for their self-esteem, and going, they're living in fantasy. Remember Piaget? The first stage of development is it's all fantasy. Your pre-operational stage of development. You're living, and someone dies, well, they're going to come back. They live in fantasy. So self-esteem doesn't really begin yet. But once they go from 6 to 7, 8, round then, all of a sudden the brain is changing. And all of a sudden they go into concrete stage of development. And now they're saying to you, no, she's cheating. No, I go in the front of the car this time. No, you sat there before. No, you went first last time. It was you decided what we're eating tonight for dinner. And you go through all this, all of a sudden it's black and white, concrete stage of development. Some adults stay there, unfortunately, and they can't see the other side when you go into formal operational. That's late teens, during college, even. Great place to be on a college campus during that stage when you're getting more brain cells. And all of a sudden you're saying, whoa, wait a minute. There isn't just one side. Yet you can all meet for Thanksgiving, and Uncle Joe walks in and says, Dodgers, the best team ever. And you go, well, there was this and that. Nobody talking about Dodgers, the best team ever. And you're done. Conversation's over. Some adults just don't get out of that concrete stage. And you can probably sit and think about it and go, oh, yeah, I know who that is. Okay. But most people, hopefully, they do. And you go to formal operational. Now, sit back now and think, do you think your parents accepted you for who you were? Then the next thing, did you think your parents supported you in school if you needed help? Did they just shoo you away? Did they say to you, oh, if you studied, if you didn't do that, if you weren't so social? Now, if there's an issue with the phones nowadays, and there is an issue, especially the boys play games. The girls, there's a lot of research that these poor girls, and they end up with the friendships, everything on, it's on their phones. And it did become an issue. You have to look into that because that's a big reason so many grades do drop. But did you think your parents supported you in school if you needed help? The third bullet, did you think your parents respected you? And 4, did your parents compliment you? Or were they ever sarcastic? And so many people come in here and the parents, because I'm one of those crazy tutors, and I'm not tutoring too much now. I'm basically training teachers. But I always have parents sit here during the session with me because I wanted to model how you speak to the child. What do you do? And they would leave at the end and go, I don't think I have your patience. You need patience. And if you're the parent and you see that you're just screaming and your child ends up running out of the room and slamming the door and crying and whatever, get somebody else to work with them. See who else. See if there's a neighbor or a grandma, grandpa, a kid down the street. Get the right tutor. Not all tutors are the same. Many kids don't need tutoring. They need mommy or daddy there. They need some help. But if you're seeing you're being sarcastic and you're getting frustrated, and get somebody else in. Let me go on to the next thing. So think about those things. I just wanted to throw it back in the parents' lap. The fourth thing, 4 critical contributing factors of self-esteem. Okay, we talked about having a safe environment, being respected by mom and dad, knowing they are accepted, supported by their mom and dad. Do you see I keep throwing this in? Um, it's the parents, and I don't mean to like a guilt trip on anybody because I'm a parent of two, grandparent of four. I taught. I did. It is so hard. It is so difficult, and you just feel like you're going to scream sometimes. And but you have to just stand back and go, wait. No child's ever asked to be born. Let's figure out what's going on here. Let's get to the root of the problem. Okay, four. This helps with self esteem. And I said one of the biggest issues, you have to make sure that feeling of self worth is there so that they can deal with other issues. Four, important, being part of a family, a school, and a community. You have to be careful that your child doesn't feel that their family is happening around them. Okay. So many kids, they go, I don't know, where does your dad work? Where does your mom work? I, I don't know. And it fascinated me over the years how many kids really just didn't know. Have you ever gone to work with your mom or dad? No, I don't know. It's just like so many the grandma comes in to help, then the grandpa or the nanny or the au pair, whoever's there with them. The mother and father, they have that's their security. That's how this whole thing is going to work. So what do? Work, play together. Take them to work if you possibly can. Have them in there if you own a store, if you own something. My sister and I grew up in a toy shop. My parents opened a toy shop when I was 6. And if anyone there is from Scarsdale, living in that area, my parents opened a toy shop. My mother and father, just as natural, they said, okay, just go up to the customer and just say, may I help you? This was in those olden days, back in the 50s. And I was 6 years old, of shy, but I wasn't shy there. I'd go up and people would tell me. And I remember I was 6 years old and I go to my mother and my father and say, they want a gift for so and so. And they say, go show them. And I was wrapping the gift. My sister the other day said, but you two, the two of us can make the best gift wrapping. We were behind the counter with the cash register. I had a boy here years ago. They owned a pie place here locally. We all went to, it's called, I loved it. It was called Grandma's Pies, best pie ever. And I was writing his college essay with him. And he goes, sheesh, I just was that average kid. I didn't do anything. I went to work every day after I went over to my grandparents' pie place. My parents were there. And he said, so I said, what did you do? They said, oh, that was his family. It was his actual, I mean, not all of them were related, but he belonged. He was important. He was part of that. And he said, well, I began at 6 years old. I did the toast, and I had a certain box I stood on, and I used to make all the toast. I just thought we wrote the best college essay ever. And then he said, then I became a runner. And I said, what is that? And he told me what that is. And then he finally became a server. It was the entire thing was so great because he was part of this family system. Make sure your child feels they're part of it. Build a sense of familiar pride by supporting one another. Encourage all family members to be proud of themselves and make a party for one of them. Maybe as a family, you make a surprise party for someone, or or you work together to you're all going to have Thanksgiving at your house, and each one makes something for the dinner. Let's go here. Okay. Try hard and you will succeed. This one little boy was the most precious thing. He came to me from 4 years old until he went off to college. He had what the doctor explained to me. The mother basically had like a stroke when he still was a fetus. Basically, he had brain damage. And so when he was born, sweetest little boy, and he couldn't speak aphasia, but he also couldn't. When he started to grow, I realized he was bright. The parents, the mom and the grandpa brought him to me the first time. He was 4. And I realized I said, he's bright. He's going to be fine. And we put him in, he was in the public school up here, one of the public schools. Fabulous. What they gave them, they helped that family so much. And the grandparents moved they sold their house and they moved in with the parents and with the family. And they brought up this little boy and his younger sister because the mom and dad had to go to work. So everybody, and then the other grandparents lived in the next town. Everybody worked with this little boy. Okay. And the school paid for him during the summer. And I mean, I have to say he got the support, but that mom and dad were out there fighting for this kid. And he's an engineer right now. I have to tell you, he stopped by my house one day and I went, "Oh, Christopher, oh my God." Because I have an office, we have an actual office in our home. We have like 80 tutors that work for us, but they're all over the county. But Christopher, the doorbell rang and there he was. He had finished college and he became an engineer. And he stood and he looks at me and he goes, "Shun, Tion, Ture, Ture." I mean, it was hysterical. And I teach using card games because they're children. And my husband and I created over 200 different card games, all following Orton Gillingham phonics for these kids that have severe problems and they can't learn any other way. They'll play games. They'll win. They want to win. Their children. And Christopher came to me and he learned. And he was just wonderful. So he walked in one time and he said to me, "You know what I learned? That if you try hard, you will succeed." And I said to him, "Wow, who told you that? Your mom?" He goes, "No." I said, "Your dad?" "No." I said, "Grandma?" "No." "Grandpa?" "No." We went to a Chinese restaurant last night, and that was the fortune I had in my fortune cookie. And he came and he had the piece of paper with him. And he said that meant so much, but he had that family system. He had that strength with that family. His younger sister was always helping him, always helping him. I remember one time, though, I let her come in to play one of the games with us. Well, she won in 2 seconds. And at that point, I said, "You know what? Wait in the waiting room." I think this wasn't the best thing for him. So, but that family system to help the kids, belonging to the family, you feel that you just get that feeling of self-worth. I'm important. I'm an important part of this family. I contribute to this family. Then join the school community as the parent. Make sure that you become part of the school community. Join parent groups at school. Become the class parent. I mean, kids love it. With my dad's going on a class trip with us. I mean, they just feel like such a big shot. Go on field trips, attend school functions like fairs, be part of the fairs, become involved. And I know everybody's working hard and there's no time. And it's so tough. And I understand that. But whatever you can do to make sure your child knows that they're not on the outside looking in at a family, they're part of the family, they're part of the school, they're part of the community. Playing with neighbors' kids, attend activities at the public library. It's your library. Have teens volunteer at the local hospital, historical society, religious or community institutions. It's your religious institution. Make them feel they belong. Maslow, I guess if anyone's following, I talked about safety. Maslow stages of development. One of the most important stages of development is that feeling of belonging. Set a good example by you doing all these things. But not, as I said, that one mom, I remember she was on the school board and she was so wrapped up with meetings, but the child was failing. I used to say to her, "Come and sit with me." And she'd come running and drop off the kid. "I have a meeting. I have a meeting." It's more important to sit with your child. Make sure this is what gives them that feeling of self-worth. Show your children special features and resources of your community, natural, man-made. Let them become proud of their community. And if there isn't anything, as a parent or the adult in the community, see what you can do, see what you can pull together. Okay, now I want to leave some time for questions. I'm going to show you this, and this for homework. You don't have to do it. But if you show up next week and you come to the, please bring it with you. Let me know what you did. I'm so curious. I've done this with many, many families. This helps create that feeling. Remember, I said I went to work with my parents. I was taking care of customers at 6 years old. I was important. That's when you develop that feeling, 6, 7, 8. And it's interesting, it stays with you. If you're, they have done studies, if you're very poor at that age, you're always concerned about money. It doesn't leave you. If you're very heavy, you always kind of be pulling in the coat to cover. Even if you become thin, it stays with you. Around 6, 7, so you have to be with that child and make sure they feel safe. They know everyone respects them, mom and dad. Their perception is that you're their ally, you're with them. This is a fun thing to do as a family. You can begin with a draw, just take this, take a t-shirt, draw a t-shirt. Make family symbols. What represents your family? And you can include your mom, the mom, dad, and the children, the nuclear family. You can, the extended, you can include grandparents. Family symbols, okay, cities, states, and countries use symbols to represent them. For example, this country has an official bird, flower, flag. Select a symbol for each category to represent your family, okay, and explain why this represents your family. Sitting down together, you can come up with a family bird, a family flower, a gemstone, your own family tree. Remember, my husband said, tree? What do you mean a family tree where we have all the, and I said, no, an oak tree. What type of family are we? Weeping willow? Are we, what? This can create so many discussions. These children will not forget it. They won't forget this. And as they grow up, they'll be sitting with cousins, with their siblings and saying, remember daddy? Daddy refused to take the bird we all wanted. Daddy wanted the eagle, and we all wanted the bluebird or the blue jay. And so finally, Daddy made his own symbols, but doesn't matter. The memory, Daddy's part of the family. The memory is that that's who Daddy was. That was his personality. And it's okay sometimes to not all accept all the same things. And you're learning how to get along with others. Um, you're learning just your own feeling of self-worth, and that you're important. You're part of this family. And when you put this together, I've had parents walk in and all them are wearing the t-shirts, and they'll come up with symbols, and they've come up with, oh my God, beautiful, beautiful things, emblems. I'm not into arts and crafts so much, so I can't even tell you. I know you probably could do this with permanent markers. I'm not quite sure. A lot of people will be more creative than I am. But it's a fun activity until we actually meet again and we go over what it is. And just as all tonight was about building the feeling of self-worth, that feeling of self-esteem, because once that's there, they'll be able to deal with the bad grades. They'll be, and is it going to be hard? No. Yes, it is going to be hard. And when the child fails, and you say, you know what? Sometimes I failed. I remember the biology, I couldn't get it. I just couldn't. And you just explain something, and they're not alone. You're with them. The problem is so many parents see bad grades and they react, a knee-jerk reaction. That's it. I'm taking away the phone. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Maybe they're on the phone for a reason. Maybe they're lonely. You don't know. You must find the cause. Next week, when we meet again, next Tuesday night, I'm going to be talking about the name of our company, Strong. Why did we name our company Strong? I had been working on my doctoral dissertation, and I realized that when I put it all together, in order to help produce or build or whatever we want to call it, a healthy, strong, socially, emotionally, and academically strong child with a feeling of self-worth, there were certain elements that were absolutely necessary. And it's so next week we're going to be talking about this. Tonight we did the S for strong, self-esteem. Next week we're going to talk about the T, which is trust. How do you create trust between you and your child? And there's a problem with trust because there are many, many children that end up lying. And they lie because they're failing. They know they're struggling. Kids, they know it. They know when there's a problem. And they're embarrassed. They're embarrassed in front of their peers. And that's why I keep stressing ally, ally, be their ally, help them, because they're struggling anyway. How do you set up that trust? When they don't trust what you're going to do, they're going to lie. They're going to say, no, there's no test. No, no. And they're going to make up all these things. No, there's no homework. No, they know they haven't given homework for a long time. No, we've had a teacher, we've had a substitute for the past month or two. I mean, they will lie to you, and then the parents go crazy and they go for therapy with the child. Why is this child lying? Because they don't want to tell you the truth. That's why. And so, how do you set that up? The T. So, strong is the self esteem. The T is trust. We're going to go into trust. R, responsibility to yourself, your family, okay, and your community. Setting up responsibility. And how do you do this? How do you help your child? And I'll be going into the different grades. That's the STRO, options, creating options. If you do have the book, that helps you, because part one talks about the self-esteem and then goes into STRO, okay, ONG, the strong. So you have the trust, the responsibility. O stands for options, decision-making skills. One of the most important skills you can teach your child. And we all know, I mean, decision-making, options. There's so many options. I mean, you go into the supermarket, you can't even buy a loaf of bread. There are so many options. It's like mind-boggling. But in life, you're always going to have options. And it's how do you deal with decision making, with options? And at all ages, I go through to talking about the different ages. And needs. And we're going to talk about the needs. The needs, the need for safety, the need to eat well, the need to sleep enough hours. How do you deal with stress? Okay, these are all the needs that children deal with. And how do you address all these needs? And the final one is goals, short-term and long-term goals. How do you help a child set up goals? Because without goals, you're kind of floundering. You do need goals. Okay, so that's going to be next week. And that's what we're going to go into. And then the third week, we're going to go into all the different obstacles that get in children's way. What did the pandemic do? How did that change all our children's lives? And it changed all of us, the pandemic. Social media, what is that doing? The computer in the classroom, what is that doing to kids? What is happening? So it's all these obstacles that have gotten in the way. And how do you get past it? What if your child does have dyslexia? What if your child does have dysgraphia or dyscalculia or ADHD or a language processing disorder? I'm going to go into all the symptoms and then how do you deal with it? What can you do? Okay, that's going to go into that. And the last week, we're going to talk about obstacles that we can't control. Then it's frustrating. And sometimes you just can't control everything. And you can't. So that's how we're going the next 4 weeks. If you have the book and there's a question, anything in there, just let me know. Write it down and let me know. And bring back your t-shirts. Even if you don't make them into t-shirts and you just bring, this is what my family put together. I think that would be great that we can all talk about it. Anyway, I think that's about it. That's going to be the course. And I thank you all so much for coming here. I wish I could meet every one of you. I'm going to get off now and look to see who was here tonight. I thank you. And Laura, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Linda. And on that note, we are going to conclude with tonight's session. We do hope you can join us for session two, which will be held next week. So thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.